The morning started like any other for Lieutenant Commander Susan Miller. She woke up at 5:30 a.m., went for a 3-mile run with her golden retriever buddy trotting happily beside her, showered, had coffee, and headed to work at the United Earth Defense Force headquarters. As the lead diplomat for humanity's space program, Susan had a busy schedule of meetings about potential alien contact protocols. After 15 years of sending signals into space, humanity was still waiting for a response. Today was supposed to be ordinary. It ended up changing human history forever. Susan was in the middle of a meeting with General Alan Wilson when every screen in the UEDF headquarters suddenly went dark. Seconds later, emergency lights flashed red, and alarms blared through the building. "What's happening?" Susan asked, rising from her seat as technicians rushed around the command center. General Wilson grabbed the nearest phone. His face turned pale as he listened to the report. "We have an unidentified object in Earth's orbit. It's massive, bigger than anything we've ever built." Before Susan could respond, the main view screen flickered back to life. Instead of showing the usual Earth surveillance feed, it displayed something that made everyone in the room freeze. A creature stood against a metallic background. It had obsidian scales covering its body and 6 golden eyes arranged in a circle on its face. 2 large mandibles clicked together where a human mouth would be, and its height, even through the screen, was clearly over 7 feet. Are we seeing?" Susan couldn't finish her sentence. "First contact," General Wilson whispered. The alien's mandibles clicked faster before a mechanical voice boomed through the speakers. "Humans, I am Commander Zakathul of the Craxian Empire. Your planet has resources we require. Surrender now or face annihilation." The command center erupted in chaos. Officers shouted orders, technicians frantically worked at their stations, and security personnel rushed to their posts. Susan remained still, staring at the alien on the screen, her diplomatic training taking over. "General," she said calmly, "I need to respond." General Wilson nodded and signaled for silence. The room quieted as technicians prepared the communication link. Susan stepped forward. "Commander Zakathul, I am Lieutenant Commander Susan Miller of the United Earth Defense Force. Earth welcomes your presence and the opportunity for peaceful discussion. Perhaps we can—" "There will be no discussion," the alien interrupted. "We have observed your kind for some time. You are soft, emotional creatures who waste resources on useless activities. Your technology is primitive. Your defenses are weak." Susan kept her expression professional despite the insults. "Commander, surely there's no need for threats. Earth has many resources and we're open to establishing trade." The alien made a sound that might have been laughter, but it sounded more like metal grinding against metal. "Trade? The Craxian Empire does not trade with lesser species. We take what we need." "Commander," Susan tried again, "war benefits nobody. If you tell us what resources you require, perhaps we can reach an agreement that—" "Enough," Zakathul's voice boomed. "Your planet has 48 Earth hours to prepare for surrender. Any resistance will result in planetary bombardment, beginning with your largest population centers." "Please reconsider," Susan urged. "Humanity wishes to establish peaceful relations with—" The screen went black. The alien was gone. The command center exploded into activity again. General Wilson immediately called an emergency meeting of Earth's Defense Council. Susan was tasked with contacting every major government to coordinate a unified response. 6 hours later, after non-stop meetings, Susan finally headed home to gather emergency supplies. The news of the alien arrival had spread worldwide, causing panic in major cities. The streets were filled with cars as people tried to flee to rural areas. When Susan reached her apartment, Buddy greeted her at the door, tail wagging as if it were any normal day. She knelt down and hugged her dog tightly. "Hey, boy," she whispered, burying her face in his golden fur. "Things are about to get very complicated." Susan quickly packed essential items: clothes, food, medical supplies, and Buddy's dog food. As she worked, her phone rang constantly with updates from headquarters. World leaders were arguing about whether to attempt a preemptive strike. Military forces were being mobilized globally. Scientists were trying to analyze the alien technology from limited scans. No one had any good news. With her car packed, Susan took one last look at her apartment. The photo of her parents on the wall, the books she'd collected over the years, the comfortable couch where she and Buddy would relax. After long days, she wondered if she'd ever see any of it again. "Come on, Buddy," she said, patting her leg. The dog followed her to the car, jumping into the passenger seat like they were going for a weekend trip. Just as Susan started the engine, her secure phone buzzed. It was General Wilson. "Miller, I need you back at headquarters immediately," he said without greeting. "Our analysts discovered something in the alien communication, something about beasts they think humans control. It might give us leverage." "Beasts? What kind of beasts?" Susan asked, confused. "We don't know yet, but they mentioned it several times in background chatter our systems picked up. They seem concerned about it." "I'm on my way," Susan said, putting the car in drive. "But sir, I have my dog with me." There was a pause. "Bring him too. We're setting up for long-term operations. Most key personnel are moving into the underground bunkers with whatever they could grab, including families. Your quarters will be ready." The call ended and Susan headed toward UEDF headquarters, driving against the flow of traffic leaving the city. Beside her, Buddy watched the chaos through the window, his gentle brown eyes taking in the strange human behavior. "You know," Susan said to her dog as they passed panicked crowds, "in all our training for first contact, we expected curiosity or even fear from aliens. But pure aggression? Taking what they want because they can? They're acting like the worst of humanity." Buddy tilted his head at her voice. "And what's this about beasts?" she wondered aloud. What could possibly scare a species capable of crossing interstellar space and threatening an entire planet? As they approached the UEDF complex, Susan saw defensive positions being set up. Anti-aircraft weapons were being installed on rooftops. Soldiers rushed around with grim faces. Earth was preparing for war, and Susan, a diplomat who had spent her career preparing for peaceful first contact, was driving straight toward the center of humanity's defense with nothing but a suitcase of clothes and a friendly golden retriever. Neither she nor anyone else on Earth could have imagined that Buddy, with his wagging tail and gentle nature, would soon become humanity's most important asset in the face of alien invasion. Susan Miller arrived at UEDF headquarters just as night fell. The building had transformed in the hours since she left. Armed guards checked everyone's ID twice. Sandbags surrounded the entrances. Military vehicles filled the parking lots. Inside, the hallways bustled with grim-faced personnel carrying equipment and supplies to the underground levels. Lieutenant Commander Miller, a young soldier, greeted her at the security checkpoint. "General Wilson is waiting for you in the war room." The soldier looked down at Buddy, who sat patiently beside Susan. "Is that your dog, ma'am?" "Yes," Susan said, placing a protective hand on Buddy's head. General Wilson approved. The soldier nodded but looked uncertain. "Of course, ma'am. Please follow me." As they walked through the building, Susan noticed people staring at Buddy. Some smiled briefly, a moment of normality in the chaos. Others frowned, as if a dog had no place in military headquarters during Earth's greatest crisis. Buddy, for his part, walked calmly beside Susan, occasionally sniffing the air but staying close. The war room was barely recognizable. What had been a place for meetings and discussions was now a full command center. Large screens covered the walls, showing maps of Earth with defensive positions marked, live feeds from space telescopes aimed at the alien ship, and scrolling data that Susan couldn't understand. At least 30 people worked at computer stations talking urgently into headsets. Captain John Fletcher, the UEDF's tactical leader, stood at the central table with General Wilson and several other high-ranking officers. John was a tall man, with a serious face and short gray hair. He had served in conflicts around the world before joining the UEDF. If Earth went to war with the aliens, he would lead the fight. "Miller," General Wilson called when he saw her. "Come here, and you brought your dog." Susan approached the table, Buddy following obediently. You said to bring him, sir. I did, the general admitted, though I wasn't thinking clearly. It's been a difficult day. He rubbed his tired eyes. But he's here now. Keep him out of the— Wait. Yes, sir, Susan said. She turned to John. Captain Fletcher, what's our situation? John's face was grim. Not good. Our best weapons can't match their technology. If they start bombing from orbit, we can't stop them. What about evacuation? Susan asked. To where? John replied. They can hit anywhere on the planet. We're moving essential personnel underground, but we can't hide everyone. General Wilson pointed to one of the screens showing the alien ship. Our only hope is to find a weakness or to convince them not to attack. That's why I called you back, Miller. He motioned to a young man working at a nearby computer station. This is Lieutenant Rick Martinez, Intelligence. He's been analyzing the alien communications. Rick stood and walked over. He was shorter than the others, with dark hair and serious eyes behind glasses. He carried a tablet computer. Lieutenant Commander, Rick greeted Susan, then bent down slightly to look at Buddy. And who's this? This is Buddy, Susan said. My dog, Rick smiled briefly. Good to meet you both. I have something important to show you. He tapped on his tablet, and one of the wall screens changed to show strange symbols that must be the alien language. These are communications we intercepted, between the main ship and smaller vessels. Our computers have been working to translate them based on the message they sent us. And, Susan prompted, they keep mentioning something called the beasts. Look here. Rick pointed to a specific symbol that repeated several times. This word appears frequently in their internal communications, always in the context of humans. And based on the surrounding words we've managed to translate, they seem afraid. John crossed his arms. Afraid? Of what? Our weapons don't worry them. Not our weapons, Rick said. These beasts they think we control. Susan frowned. What beasts? We don't use animals in warfare anymore. That's just it, Rick said excitedly. We don't know what they're talking about. But whatever these beasts are, the Craxians believe we have them and can use them as weapons. Could it be a translation error? General Wilson asked. Rick shook his head. I don't think so, sir. There are too many references. Listen to this. He tapped his tablet again, and a recording played. It was the clicking sound of the alien language, followed by the computer's rough translation. Commander, scans show many beast control centers in human cities. They keep them in dwellings in special areas, some even in their food preparation spaces. Another alien voice responded. Are they preparing to deploy the beasts against us? Unknown, Commander. But humans have been observed walking the smaller beasts on control tethers daily, perhaps training exercises. The recording ended. The room was silent for a moment. Beast control centers? Control tethers? John finally said. What are they talking about? Susan's eyes widened as an idea struck her. She looked down at Buddy, who wagged his tail when he noticed her attention. Wait, she said slowly. Could they mean pets? Dogs? Cats? Rick blinked, then looked at Buddy with new interest. That actually makes sense with their descriptions. Control tethers could be leashes. Beast control centers might be pet stores or dog parks. But why would they fear pets? General, Wilson asked. We don't know enough about their biology or culture, Susan said. Maybe where they come from, all mammals are dangerous predators. Maybe they've never domesticated animals. As they discussed this strange possibility, Buddy wandered away from Susan's side. The dog made his way around the war room, visiting different personnel. Some ignored him, focused on their work. Others welcomed the distraction, reaching down to pet him as he passed. Susan watched as Buddy approached a particularly stressed-looking woman working at a communications station. The woman initially tried to shoo him away, but when Buddy rested, his head gently on her knee and looked up with soft brown eyes, her face softened. She scratched behind his ears, and for just a moment she smiled. Look at that, Susan said quietly to the others. In the middle of preparing for possible extinction, a dog can still make someone smile. John watched thoughtfully. If the aliens really are afraid of our pets, that's almost funny. But how does it help us? I don't know yet, Susan admitted, but it's something they don't understand about us. And in diplomacy, understanding your counterpart's fears is crucial. General Wilson nodded. Keep working on it, all of you. We have less than 40 hours before their deadline. Just then, alarms blared through the building. Everyone turned to the main screen where a new alert flashed. Multiple small crafts launching from the alien ship, announced a technician. They appear to be landing vessels. Where are they heading? General Wilson demanded. Tracking trajectory. They're coming down in major cities. Beijing, Moscow, New York, London, Cairo. They're not waiting for their deadline, John said grimly. They're starting the invasion now. No, Rick disagreed, studying the data. These are too few for a full invasion. Looks like scouting parties? Susan took a deep breath. They want to see what they're up against before the main attack. They want to see our defenses. And perhaps, Rick added quietly, looking at Buddy, who had returned to Susan's side, they want to see our beasts. General Wilson turned to John. Captain Fletcher, prepare defense teams at each landing site. Orders are to observe but not engage unless threatened. Lieutenant Commander Miller, you'll come with me to New York. If they're coming to scout, let's show them our diplomatic face. First? Yes, sir, Susan said. She looked down at Buddy. What about him? The general hesitated, then said, Bring him. If these aliens really are curious about our pets, let's see how they react. As Susan gathered her things and prepared to leave for New York with General Wilson, she couldn't shake the strange feeling that her golden retriever might somehow play a role in humanity's first interstellar conflict. Outside, the night sky was clear, stars visible despite the city lights. Somewhere up there, the Craxian ship waited, its occupants perhaps as confused by humans as humans were by them, and the clock continued to count down. The military helicopter flew low over the empty streets of New York City. Susan looked down at the strange sight of Times Square without people. The evacuation had been quick and messy after news of the alien landing craft spread. Now, only military vehicles and emergency personnel remained in the normally busy city. Beside Susan, Buddy sat calmly despite the loud noise of the helicopter. General Wilson sat across from them, talking urgently into his radio. 2 armed soldiers also rode with them, checking their weapons nervously. Landing zone confirmed, the pilot announced. Alien craft touched down in Central Park 10 minutes ago. UEDF forces have established a perimeter but are keeping distance as ordered. Susan took a deep breath. She had trained for diplomatic meetings with potential alien visitors, but not like this, not with invaders who had already threatened Earth. Remember, General Wilson said to her as the helicopter began to descend, our goal is to buy time, learn what we can about them, maybe find a weakness. Yes, sir, Susan replied, placing a reassuring hand on Buddy's head. The dog leaned against her leg, sensing her tension. The helicopter landed near the edge of Central Park. As they exited, Susan could see military vehicles positioned at all park entrances. Soldiers with binoculars watched from rooftops of nearby buildings. In the distance, a column of strange purple smoke rose from what must be the alien landing site. Captain John Fletcher met them, his face tense. General Commander Miller, the aliens have set up some kind of perimeter field around their landing craft. Our sensors can't penetrate it. They've made no attempt to communicate yet. How many? General Wilson asked. We count 12 figures moving around the ship, John replied, including one that matches the description of Commander Zakathul from the transmission. Susan felt her heart beat faster. The alien leader himself was here. They must want to see Earth's leadership up close, she said. Maybe size us up before their deadline expires. General Wilson nodded. Then let's not disappoint them. Fletcher, you stay here and coordinate our forces. Miller, you're with me. We'll approach with a small team. Sir? Susan hesitated, looking down at Buddy. What about him? The general considered the dog for a moment. Bring him, keep him close. If these aliens really are concerned about our beasts, let's see how they react to a friendly one. Their small group moved carefully toward the center of the park. 2 soldiers walked ahead, while Susan, General Wilson, and Buddy followed. 2 more soldiers guarded their backs. They all wore bulletproof vests except for Buddy, who trotted along happily as if they were just taking a morning walk. As they got closer, Susan could see the alien ship. It was smaller than she expected, about the size of a city bus, but with a strange triangular shape and a metallic purple surface that seemed to shift and move like liquid. Around the ship, tall figures moved with precise, almost mechanical movements. The Craxians were even more intimidating in person. Each stood at least 7 feet tall, with bodies covered in black scales that reflected light like polished obsidian. Their 6 golden eyes seemed to glow from within, and their mandibles clicked constantly as they communicated. "Hold position," General Wilson ordered when they were about 50 yards from the aliens. "Let them notice us first." It didn't take long. One of the Craxians pointed in their direction, and soon all of them turned to face the humans. A particularly large Craxian stepped forward from the group. Even from this distance, Susan recognized Commander Zikathul from the transmission. "Human leaders," the alien's mechanical translator voice carried across the distance. "You show wisdom in coming to witness our superior technology before your deadline expires." General Wilson stepped forward. "Commander Zakathul, I am General Alan Wilson of the United Earth Defense Force. We've come to continue the dialogue that was started yesterday." "There is no dialogue," Zakathul replied. "Only terms of surrender." Susan moved up beside the general. "Commander, I am Lieutenant Commander Susan Miller. We believe there may be misunderstandings between our species that could be resolved through communication." The alien commander's golden eyes seemed to focus on her. The female diplomat from the transmission. "You speak of misunderstandings, yet your kind prepares for conflict. Our scouts report military movements worldwide." "Just as your kind threatens invasion," Susan countered calmly. "Self-defense is natural for any species." The alien's mandibles clicked rapidly. "You will find your defenses inadequate." As the tense conversation continued, Buddy grew restless. He had been sitting patiently beside Susan, but now he stood and sniffed the air curiously, interested in the strange new smells. Susan tried to keep him still with a gentle hand on his back, but he was too curious. Before she could stop him, Buddy took a few steps forward, tail wagging as he looked at the aliens with friendly interest. The effect was immediate and shocking. All the Craxians except Zakathul took several quick steps backward. Some raised strange-looking weapons. Their mandibles clicked frantically in what seemed like alarm. "Control your beast," Zikathul demanded, though Susan noticed he had also moved back slightly. "This is a violation of neutral meeting terms." Susan was confused for a moment until she remembered Rick's theory about the beasts. Could it be true? Were these powerful aliens actually afraid of dogs? "Commander," she said carefully, moving forward to place her hand on Buddy's collar. "This is not a weapon. This is a companion animal. We call them dogs. They live with us peacefully." The alien's 6 eyes blinked in sequence. "You expect us to believe you bring no weapons when you have your attack beast with you? Our intelligence? Reports show these creatures throughout your world, kept ready for deployment." General Wilson looked as surprised as Susan felt. "Attack beast? This is just a pet. A friend." "Lies," Zikathul's translator boomed. "We have observed these creatures' capabilities, their speed, their teeth, their hunting skills. You have bred them for war." Susan almost laughed at the absurdity, but kept her face serious. "Commander, there has been a profound misunderstanding. On Earth, many animals have been domesticated over thousands of years. They've evolved to live alongside humans as companions, not weapons." To demonstrate, she knelt beside Buddy and hugged him gently. The dog responded by licking her cheek affectionately. The Craxians watched this interaction with what seemed like a mixture of disbelief and disgust. "See?" Susan said. "Buddy is friendly. He poses no threat to you." Just at that moment, a loud noise came from nearby. A military vehicle backfiring in the distance. The sudden sound startled everyone, including Buddy, who responded with a single sharp bark. The reaction from the Craxians was dramatic. Several dropped to defensive crouching positions. Others raised their weapons. Commander Zakatul himself stepped back and raised a gauntleted arm. "It uses its sonic attack," he shouted. "Warriors, defensive positions." In an instant, the peaceful meeting turned chaotic. The human soldiers raised their weapons in response to the aliens' movements. General Wilson shouted for everyone to hold fire. Susan desperately tried to calm Buddy, who, sensing the tension, barked again, making the situation worse. "Unleash the sonic cannons," Zikathul ordered his troops. "Destroy the beast before it calls others." Susan realized with horror that they were about to fire on Buddy. Without thinking, she threw herself in front of her dog, arms spread wide. "Stop!" she shouted. "This is a terrible mistake." The aliens hesitated, their weapons humming with energy, but not firing. "Step away from the beast, human," Zikathul demanded. "I will not," Susan said firmly. "And if you harm him, any chance of peaceful resolution between our species ends here." For a tense moment, no one moved. Humans and aliens stood frozen in a standoff that could determine the fate of Earth. And in the middle of it all sat Buddy, his tail still wagging slightly, completely unaware that he had just become the center of the first interstellar crisis in human history. Time seemed to stand still in Central Park. Susan Miller stood with her arms outstretched, protecting Buddy from the Craxian weapons pointed at them. The alien soldiers kept their strange sonic cannons aimed, waiting for Commander Zakathul's order to fire. General Wilson and the human soldiers had their weapons raised as well, creating a deadly standoff. "This has gone too far," Susan said, trying to keep her voice calm despite her racing heart. "Commander Zakathul, I'm begging you to listen. There has been a terrible misunderstanding between our species." The tall alien commander's golden eyes narrowed. "The only misunderstanding was our assessment of human deception. You bring your war beast to a peaceful meeting." "He's not a war beast," Susan insisted. "He's a dog, a pet, a friend." Zakathul's mandibles clicked rapidly. "Friend? You expect us to believe your species befriends predators?" Behind Susan, Buddy wagged his tail and let out a small whine, confused by the tension around him but still friendly. Suddenly, Susan had an idea, a dangerous one, but perhaps the only way to prove her point. "Commander," she said, slowly lowering her arms, "I want to show you something. Please instruct your warriors not to fire." Zakathul hesitated, then made a gesture to his troops. They kept their weapons raised, but didn't fire. Susan turned to General Wilson. "Sir, please tell our people to stand down as well. I need to demonstrate something." The general looked uncertain but gave the order. The human soldiers lowered their weapons slightly but remained alert. Very carefully, Susan knelt beside Buddy. The dog immediately leaned against her, sensing her need for comfort. "In human culture," she explained to Zakathul, "dogs like Buddy have lived alongside us for thousands of years. We've evolved together. They help us in many ways, finding lost people, guiding those who cannot see, providing comfort when we're sad, but mostly, they're our companions." The alien commander watched with his 6 eyes unblinking. "You claim this creature with teeth and claws is domesticated?" "Yes," Susan nodded. "Let me show you." She turned to Buddy and gave him a hand signal. "Buddy, sit." The golden retriever promptly sat on his haunches. "Paw," Susan said, holding out her hand. Buddy raised his right paw and placed it in her palm. "Lie down." The dog immediately lay flat on the ground. "Roll over." Buddy rolled onto his back, exposing his belly, then rolled back to his stomach. With each command, the Craxians' posture changed slightly. Their weapons lowered inch by inch as they watched the interaction between human and dog. "You see," Susan said, looking up at Zakathul. "He obeys simple commands because we've built trust. Not fear, not control. Trust and affection." To demonstrate further, she gently scratched behind Buddy's ears. The dog's tail thumped happily against the ground and his eyes half closed in pleasure. This is how Earth creatures respond to kindness. Susan continued. Buddy would never hurt anyone unless they threatened me, and even then he's trained not to attack. Commander Zikthul stepped closer, his tall form looming over Susan and Buddy. The dog looked up at the alien with curious eyes, but showed no aggression. On our world, Zikthul said, his mechanical translator voice quieter than before, all mammalian creatures are dangerous predators. We evolved from insects, not mammals. Our bodies are protected by hard exoskeletons. We have no fur. He seemed to struggle with the concept. All creatures with teeth and claws are enemies to be destroyed or avoided. Susan nodded with understanding. That explains the misunderstanding. On Earth, many mammals have been domesticated over thousands of years. Dogs, cats, horses, and others. We've selected the most friendly individuals generation after generation until they became the companions they are today. Just then, Lieutenant Rick Martinez arrived at the scene, hurrying from a nearby military vehicle. He carried a tablet computer and approached cautiously. Lieutenant Commander Miller, he called. I have the information you requested. Susan stood up. General Wilson, may I? The general nodded, and Rick joined their small group, glancing nervously at the Craxians. Commander Zakathul, Susan said. This is Lieutenant Rick Martinez, one of our intelligence officers. He has information that might help clarify things. Rick held up his tablet, showing images of different dogs. A German shepherd helping a blind person cross a street. A Saint Bernard rescuing someone from snow. A small therapy dog sitting with a sick child in a hospital. These are dogs performing various helpful roles in our society, Rick explained. We've bred different types for different purposes over thousands of years. Some help us find lost people, some help people with disabilities, some work with our law enforcement, but many are simply companions in our homes. He swiped to show more images. Families with pets, children playing with puppies, elderly people sitting with cats on their laps. Cthulhu and several other Craxians moved closer to look at the images, their earlier fear seemingly replaced by cautious curiosity. Your species lives with these creatures? In your dwellings? One of the other aliens asked. Yes, Susan replied. Many humans have pets. They're part of our families. Zikthul turned to his warriors and made a series of clicking sounds in their native language. After a brief discussion, they finally lowered their weapons completely. Our initial assessment of your species was incomplete, the commander admitted. This concept of domestication is unknown to us. On our world, all other species are competitors or prey. Susan felt relief wash over her. Commander, this is exactly why communication is so important between different civilizations. We have much to learn from each other. General Wilson stepped forward. Does this mean you're reconsidering your plans to invade Earth? Zikthul's mandibles clicked thoughtfully. The Empire requires resources. This has not changed. But perhaps there are alternatives to conquest that we had not considered. Like trade, Susan suggested. Peaceful exchange. Earth has many resources, and I'm sure the Craxian Empire has technology and knowledge that would benefit humanity. As they spoke, Buddy had wandered a few steps away, sniffing the ground with interest. He found a stick and picked it up, then trotted back to Susan, dropping it at her feet with a hopeful look. What is this behavior? Zikathul asked, his golden eyes fixed on the dog. Susan smiled. He wants to play. It's a game called fetch. I throw the stick and he brings it back. A training exercise for hunting? Another Craxian asked. No, Susan said, picking up the stick. Just play. For fun. Watch. She threw the stick about 20 feet away. Buddy immediately raced after it, grabbed it in his mouth, and brought it back to Susan, dropping it and looking up expectantly with his tail wagging. Good boy, Buddy, Susan praised, patting his head. The Craxians watched this interaction with what seemed like fascination. Your beast enjoys this simple task? Zikathul asked. Yes, Susan replied. Dogs find happiness in simple things, playing games, receiving affection, being with their humans. She held out the stick to the alien commander. Would you like to try? The tension in the park had completely changed. Human soldiers watched in disbelief as the massive alien commander hesitantly took the stick from Susan's hand. Following her instructions, Zikathul threw it with a quick flick of his wrist. The stick flew much farther than when Susan had thrown it, but Buddy raced after it just the same. When the dog returned and dropped the stick in front of the alien commander, everyone held their breath. Slowly, Zikathul reached down with his gauntleted hand. Buddy waited patiently, tail still wagging. The alien commander's six-fingered hand gently touched the dog's head, mimicking Susan's earlier patting motion. "Remarkable," Zakathul said quietly. "In all our explorations of many worlds, we have never encountered a species that turned potential enemies into allies." Susan saw an opportunity opening, not just to prevent an invasion, but to forge a genuine connection between two very different species from distant worlds. Perhaps, she suggested, that is humanity's greatest strength. 1 year later, Susan Miller stood in the grand hall of the newly built Interspecies Cultural Center in Geneva. The massive building featured architecture that blended human and Craxian design elements, smooth curves alongside angular patterns, glass windows beside shimmering purple metal. Beside her stood Buddy, now wearing a special blue vest that identified him as the first interstellar canine ambassador. His golden fur was neatly brushed for the important occasion. "Are you ready, boy?" Susan asked, scratching behind his ears. Buddy wagged his tail in response. The hall was filled with humans and Craxians alike. Where once there had been fear and threats of war, now there were diplomats, scientists, and cultural exchange officers from both species. The Craxians still looked intimidating with their tall, insect-like bodies and multiple golden eyes, but no weapons were in sight. Commander Zakathul, now Ambassador Zakathul, approached Susan. Over the past year, she had learned to read his body language better. His relaxed mandibles and slightly tilted head indicated he was in a positive mood. "Lieutenant Commander Miller," he greeted her, his translator voice now adjusted to sound less harsh than before. "Today marks a significant achievement for both our species." "Indeed, Ambassador," Susan replied with a smile. "From the brink of war to the signing of the Earth-Craxian Friendship Treaty, all because of a simple misunderstanding about a dog." Zikathul made a sound that Susan had come to recognize as laughter. "Not so simple, perhaps. Your relationship with Earth's creatures revealed much about humanity that our initial scans and observations missed. Your capacity to form bonds with other species suggested you might do the same with us, despite our differences." At that moment, a small Craxian child approached them. She was about half the height of the adults, her scales a lighter shade that would darken with age. Around her neck hung a pendant with a carving of a dog. "Ambassador Zakathul," the child said shyly. "Is this the famous Buddy?" "Indeed it is, Tikra," the ambassador replied. "Would you like to greet him?" The child looked at Susan with uncertain golden eyes. Susan nodded encouragingly. "Hold your hand out slowly, palm down," Susan instructed. "Let him sniff you first." Tikra did as instructed. Buddy sniffed the small alien's hand curiously, then gave it a gentle lick. The child made a surprised clicking sound. "He likes you," Susan said warmly. "I've been studying human-animal interactions," Tikra told her proudly. "My school project is about how the Earth Pet Exchange Program can help Craxians understand emotional bonds." The Earth Pet Exchange Program had been one of the most successful initiatives of the past year. Specially trained therapy dogs were now regular visitors to Craxian ships and colonies, helping the aliens learn about interspecies friendship. Some Craxians had even adopted Earth hamsters and guinea pigs as pets, small, non-threatening mammals that were perfect for beginning the practice of animal companionship. General Wilson joined their small group, accompanied by Captain John, Fletcher, and Lieutenant Rick Martinez. All three men wore formal military dress uniforms adorned with the new Earth-Craxian Cooperation medals. "It's almost time for the ceremony," the general said. "Everyone ready?" Susan nodded. "Ready, sir." As they moved toward the central stage where Earth and Craxian leaders waited, Susan reflected on how much had changed. The Craxians had shared advanced technology in exchange for renewable resources, avoiding the war that once seemed inevitable. Scientists from both worlds were collaborating on space exploration. Cultural exchanges were happening daily, and it all began with a misunderstanding about a dog. On stage, the human president and Craxian supreme leader prepared to sign the historic treaty. Susan, Buddy, and Zika Thule stood nearby as symbols of the unexpected friendship between the species. The Craxian leader spoke first. 1 year ago, we came to Earth seeking resources through conquest, as has been our way for millennia. Instead, we found something far more valuable, a new perspective. Humans showed us that different species can cooperate rather than compete. The human president nodded, and we learned that even the most dangerous-seeming misunderstandings can become opportunities for growth when we choose communication over conflict. As the leaders signed the treaty, Buddy sat calmly at Susan's side, unaware of his crucial role in saving 2 civilizations from war and creating a new future among the stars. Some would later say it was human diplomacy that saved the day. Others would credit Craxian willingness to reconsider their approach. But Susan knew the truth was simpler. Sometimes the greatest ambassadors have 4 paws and a wagging tail. The end